Welcome back, everybody. Today I will be discussing the controversy behind the recent video from Dr. L Lushaba, where he claims that Hitler committed no crimes. I actually had another video planned for the channel on peer review, which I mentioned in the previous video, but I felt this deserved a little bit more of my attention than something like peer review. A short disclaimer: this video features some disturbing images from the Holocaust and various massacres. The views expressed at the end of the video are my own, and all links to relevant videos and articles will be linked in the description below. Right, now with all of that out of the way, let's first discuss some background on Dr. L Lushaba. He is on the Politics Department Postgraduate Committee and has the following qualifications. He has a BA Honours degree from the University of Transkei, MA in Philosophy from the University of Ibadan, and a Masters in Philosophy from the Centre for Studies in Social Sciences in Calcutta, as well as a PhD from the University of Witwatersrand, or commonly known here as Wits. He has taught at Voltaire and Wits. He also held a visiting fellowship at African Studies Centre in Leiden in the Netherlands. He has the following interests. He's interested in political philosophy, especially German phenomenology and the Enlightenment philosophy. He's also interested in decolonial thought, politics of representation, and post-colonial African state, and radical African or Black traditions of intellectual thought. He has been teaching at the University of Cape Town, or commonly known here as UCT. For the undergraduates, he lectures on the introduction to politics and more. And for the postgraduates, he lectures on research essays and projects, as well as contemporary debates in African politics. He also has 2 publications behind his name. In this next part, I will basically just be breaking down the video in short and showing a section of the video that has become so controversial. The link to the video will also be provided in the description so that you guys can watch the full thing for yourself if you feel like it. Now, the video is a lecture on the different approaches of the study of politics and was uploaded on the 10th of April this year. He discusses how political science is only moved or becomes sensible when it concerns the number of white people that are murdered by other white people, and not when it's white people murdering black people. And he states that basically political science doesn't care about black people as they don't feature, including their experiences. It's basically, according to him, completely absent from political sciences. He raises the issue of Hitler rising to power through democratic power and decided to kill the Jews from the beginning to the end of World War II, which was from 1935 to 1945. He mentions that there were massacres by white people in Africa and South Africa prior to World War II. He mainly focuses on the 1921 Queenstown massacres here in South Africa done by white people, as well as the Herero massacre in Namibia that occurred in 1904. He then asks the question why political science only recognizes its limitations when Hitler is killing white people. He states that multiple disciplines are rooted in the sensibilities of white people. He also states that they are incapable of seeing injustices when it's suffered by black people. The development of disciplines was not informed by these experiences of black people, and these experiences have zero impact on the progression of political sciences. He openly states, and this is the very controversial part of the video, he openly states that Hitler only did to white people what white people have been doing to black people. He very clearly states that Hitler committed no crimes, and if he had committed a crime, his only crime then was doing what white people had reserved for black people, and that the Holocaust must be seen in the same way as the massacres in Africa. He also states that one massacre mustn't be privileged over another. However, according to him, the disciplines do this. They were able to preempt white people killing black people, but not white people killing white people. Just a quick thought on this. First of all, Hitler didn't actually consider the Jews as white people, but saw them more as less than human, basically animals. That is the first mistake that the dear Dr. Lushaba makes in his statement.
It takes Hitler to do to white people, because all Hitler did, Hitler committed no crime. All Hitler did was to do to white people what white people had reserved for us, black people. And so his crime, if he had a crime, was to do unto white people what white people had thought was right to do only to black people. And so we must see the Holocaust in exactly the same way that we must see the massacre of the Herero people. In exactly the same way, we must see the Queenstown massacre and several other massacres that happened across the continent. We must not privilege one massacre over the others. But you know why we privilege one?
The issue with such a statement is that there is a big difference between a massacre and genocide. Thus, they cannot be compared as Dr. Lushaba has done. A massacre is defined as an indiscriminate and brutal slaughter of many people. A genocide, however, is defined as the deliberate, which is an important word, killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Now, the Holocaust was first of all meticulously planned and executed. The Jews were stripped of all humanity and seen as animals, as I previously stated. They were often forced to dig mass graves before being shot themselves, and they were also often given false hope. The Germans would choose between decontamination showers and gassing them. The Jews never knew what was coming. Worst of all, Dr. Mengele performed extremely unethical medical experiments on them, especially the twin experiments. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there are more than enough videos on YouTube about the subject, including the interview of one twin that actually survived. Right, and women often became prostitutes just to get a piece of bread. That's what they had to do to survive. And these were also death factories in an attempt to wipe out as many Jews as possible. This is completely different from a massacre. You cannot compare the two. It's like comparing apples to pears. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what Dr. Lushaba also forgets is that 7 million other people were killed in the Holocaust. These included, and weren't limited to, homosexuals, the disabled, anyone who was against Hitler, and people of color. So the doctor really needs to rethink his statement on whether Hitler committed a crime or not. This section of the video will discuss basically the possible consequences that Dr. Lushaba might face because of his statements. The chairperson of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies stated that Dr. Lushaba's remarks were deplorable, and I quote, "to represent genocide as a justifiable action against a minority in a political education space is shameful at best." What makes all of this worse is that his remarks were said shortly before the Jewish Holocaust Memorial Day, which is seen as highly insensitive towards the Jewish nation. UCT promised to launch an investigation and published a fairly generic characterization of acts of genocide as formal crimes against humanity and ongoing sources of pain. However, Dr. Lushaba's statements caused a lot of controversy in the country, with some calling for him to be fired, while others praised him as a hero. A very good friend of mine in Germany has said that the video is unbelievable and that he would have been sent to jail in Germany, as they have strict laws against such rhetoric. The question is, do Dr. Lushaba's remarks fall under the freedom of speech? Section 16, Chapter 1 of the Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of speech and expression. This right, however, does not extend to propaganda of war, incitement of imminent violence, or the advocacy of the hatred that's based on race, ethnicity, or gender. In the articles, South Africa, When Does Freedom of Speech Go One Step Too Far? By Peter Conradi and Ajikai Ajay, published on the 25th of November 2019, the following scenario is mentioned. In the matter of Islamic Unity Convention versus Independent Broadcasting Authority in 2002, it arose that the terrible allegation was made on radio that Jewish people were not gassed in concentration camps during the Second World War, but died of infectious diseases. The court held that implicit in its provisions is an acknowledgement that certain expression does not deserve constitutional protection because, among other things, it has the potential to impinge adversely on the dignity of others and cause harm. Therefore, a step too far does not deserve constitutional protection. Following this logic, Dr. Lushaba should face the full consequences of his actions as he infringes on the rights of others to dignity. But unfortunately, as we all know, the South African justice system is extremely compromised and very biased. And the examples of this are just absolutely endless. Certain political party members are allowed to sing "Kill the Boer" or "Kill the Farmer" without facing any consequences whatsoever. I personally predict that Dr. Lushaba will maybe be suspended from UCT for a couple of months, probably also receive pay, but I'm sincerely hoping that the South African Board of Deputies go to the full extent and use all of their influence and power as far as possible to actually ensure that Dr. Lushaba actually faces the full consequences of his very insensitive and careless remarks. A friendly reminder that this section of the video are my personal thoughts on the whole situation, and these are solely my opinions. Right, so coming from a German background, the video made me livid, to say the least. My grandparents were adolescents when the war ended. They have both told me horrific tales of that time period. For example, my grandmother lost her father at the age of 5 and to this day has no idea what happened to him, only that he was declared missing in Russia. There was a forest close to where she lived, and on top of that hill, there was a huge building that was completely blocked off. And she told me that anyone who went inside that building was never seen again. Teachers who refused to do the Nazi salutes and say Heil Hitler in class were called out and just disappeared. And this applied to anyone who was against Hitler and his party. Years later, a huge grave was found in that forest, and the bodies probably belonged to these people who were so outspoken. My grandfather and his father were called out to a bunker one night where a bomb had headed skew, killing everybody inside. My grandfather and his father were tasked to remove the bodies in his father's truck. My grandfather, a teenager at the time, had to clean the blood from the back of the truck. His uncle was also captured in Serbia and suffered extreme psychological torture, and in the end he ultimately committed suicide because of what happened to him. My grandparents have told me during the apartheid era they used a siren at night to notify people of color that they were no longer allowed on the streets, and this was the exact same alarm or sirens used during the war to warn against bombs. My grandparents have admitted that for a while their blood would turn to ice and they were immediately reminded of the bombings whenever it went off. Now, having all of these first-hand accounts, along with the knowledge that I myself would have been thrown into the concentration camps because I am gay and disabled, and I would have been regarded as absolutely useless to the fatherland, Dr. Lushaba's comments brought up an intense anger that nearly drove me to tears. I can only imagine the reactions from the Jewish community themselves. And I personally hope that he will be fired and prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and that the Jewish Board of Deputies will not accept anything less and make a case against him, as I've previously stated. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it and would like to see more of this kind of content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. As a quick aside, before I say goodbye, I would like to take a moment to wish Christopher Hitchens a very happy birthday. He would have been 72 today, but unfortunately he passed away in 2011. If you want to experience how somebody should debate and the absolute genius of this man, definitely treat yourself to some of his videos. There are so many on YouTube, and he calls people out in this wonderful gentleman way with that British accent of his. It is incredible to watch this man. He had such an excellent memory, was able to recall so many facts and so many statistics off the top of his head. So, as a quick aside, happy birthday, Christopher Hitchens. You are so missed. This has been Homo-Homo sapien. Thank you so much again for watching and for listening. Until the next video.